Today we have a great story of malicious compliance against a misogynist. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, stop telling you I feel sick? Okay, Mom. Many years ago, before people had cell phones and tablets, it was difficult to stay entertained or keep in contact with friends if you were too far away. I was a teenager who liked watching TV, listening to top 40 music, going to the mall, and hanging with friends. My parents were divorced, and I spent every other weekend with my dad, who lived out of town. So I only got alternate weekends in town to spend with friends. Then my mom started dating this guy, and eventually I had to go with my mom to spend weekends at his place. In town, but downtown, far from our house and no other kids around. Now my weekends at home were spent at his place instead of at home or hanging out with friends. It was this small one-bedroom apartment, and I had to sleep on the guy's sofa. Plus he had no TV, and his idea of fun was to go on nature walks, go shopping at weird places, cook strange food, or go to a classical music concert or a jazz club, or maybe stay home and read or play musical instruments. Some of these don't seem so bad now as an adult, but kid me, I just wanted to do typical teen things. Plus I was a picky eater and I hate all of the weird food they cooked. Since I didn't want to go there, I would often tell my mom I was sick and ask to stay home. I was the youngest and older siblings were home but provided little supervision. Sometimes she would let me, but other times she would insist I go along too. One time I was truly feeling ill, like I was going to throw up. My mom announced we were going to her boyfriend's place for the weekend. I told her I felt sick, but she immediately cut me off. Said she was tired of hearing about it and I needed to stop saying I was sick. So I packed my bag and stopped telling my mom how sick I felt. Along came the boyfriend in his fancy car to pick us up. We made it 2 blocks from the house before my stomach proved the fact that I was actually sick this time. He quickly put the back window down and I almost made my head out the window in time, but not totally. He immediately turned the car around and took us back home. The best part? He was so focused on getting the interior of his vehicle cleaned, I swear the smell lingered somewhat anyway, that he failed to notice that the part that splashed down the outside of the vehicle when I did finally get my head out. By the time he got that cleaned off, it had etched some of the paint color off the car and it was permanently stained. Well, at least I kept quiet about feeling sick. I'm honestly surprised for somebody that cared that much to bring it right back home and try to get the smell out of there, that they would have let it linger around long enough to the point where it would permanently stain or permanently stink up the car. I mean, it sounds to me like this guy cared about his vehicle, so I'm surprised that when you threw up out the window, they would somehow miss the part that splashed down the outside. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you enjoy awesome stories of malicious compliance, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, I haven't had a sick day in 9 years. For reference, this takes place around 2017, so definitely pre-COVID. I used to work in a training center for a Fortune 500 company. When class wasn't in session, the building normally only had 4 people in it. Me, trainee, the boss, and the 2 trainers. I called in sick 2 days in a row because I had some nasty lung infection. On the second day, the boss starts ranting at me about how kids these days have no discipline, and I haven't taken a sick day in 9 years. I tried asking if he wanted me to get a doctor's note, but he was pretty adamant about me coming in the next day. He said that he can decide if I'm actually sick, and he can send me home. I was one of the few women working in that section of the company, less than half of everyone's age, and felt like arguing with him about it was a bad idea. QQQQ malicious compliance. That next morning, I decided not to pump myself full of cold meds and just go in raw dogging life. As soon as I walk in the door, the trainers look at me and I say, I'm very sick. Might want to give me a wide berth. They look at me wide-eyed, nodded, and went to a different section of the building. The boss hears me coughing so hard I'm having to do that gasp for air like I just emerged from the depths. He walks in and goes, "Oh, you really are sick. You should go home. But I don't understand how you got this sick," and then reminds me, I haven't taken a sick day in 9 years. So I drive home and come back in the next day. The trainers look at me and say, "What the heck are you doing here?" I say, "The boss said that if I'm actually sick, he can send me home." They laughed and avoided my section of the building. The boss once again hears me coughing and gasping for air and comes in and dismisses me, and this time tells me that he doesn't need more proof. I can come back when I feel better. 4 days later, Mr. I haven't taken a sick day in 9 years was sick with some nasty lung nonsense and was out for a week. If only he had more discipline. You know, for those 9 years, it might have worked out swimmingly for this guy. But here's especially the thing. As you continue to get older, your immune system only continues to weaken, even if by a little bit. You might have been a machine as far as fighting off diseases go 9 years ago, 5 years ago. But if you're gonna take your chances with constantly exposing yourself to sickness, you're not gonna win in the long run, right? Our next story is, hey, these are the rules in my house. This is going to sound really petty, but come on. At my school, they put Uno for my class to play, divided into groups, and a girl in my group put a bunch of rules that only she and her family used. So I made up a rule that made me win right off the bat, making the excuse that this was a rule my family and I used. I mean, I won. Although I fully subscribe to the fact that you play Monopoly with probably some kind of house rule almost every time. And I guess as far as Uno goes, I can imagine some, but I feel like Uno's a little bit more like, we're making this rule up just to make it a little bit more fun, rather than this is how it should be played. Like sevens rotating everybody's hands and zeros letting you choose which hand to swap with and stuff like that. As far as game house rules go though, the one rule I subscribe to is in Monopoly, free parking gives you the cash that everybody's been paying towards taxes and other fees. And I'll die on that hill. This next story is, management thought they didn't need me. Turns out they decided to try and sue me. I was reminded of the story, so I figured I'd share, but I'm going to be intentionally vague with the industry for privacy reasons. My post history won't help here. Now, for some context, this company wasn't new, they'd been around for about a decade before I was hired. And as far as I know, they're still around, but not sure how they're doing now. When I started there, it was only about 60-ish employees, which 15 to 20 were just hourly wage. Nobody's like me, I just had the luck of the draw that my team had 4 managers over my area. I was in a role that wasn't supposed to have any management elements, but turns out not long after I started, a few, 3 out of the 4, on the management team moved on, and I slowly took over some of their responsibilities. After about 6 months, I was starting to feel overworked and I went job hunting. Having listed the responsibility I had with this position got me a management role somewhere else with substantially higher pay. I even got them to let me have a month before starting because I wanted to give a longer notice than 2 weeks to be nice. After I'd given my 1 month notice, they were very dismissive of me leaving and acted like it wasn't a big deal. They thought they could spread out what I did among the other management teams. They were so certain that they could handle my job description of responsibilities that they even told me in writing they didn't need a transition period or training and didn't want an exit interview. They even offered me a week early leave with pay because they just thought it was handled and that I was useless. Before that week was out, I was getting calls, texts, and emails from higher-ups in HR trying to tell me that I'm contractually obligated to help them transition, and that if I didn't, that they would sue me for breach of contract. Now, the best part of this is that when I was hired, I was simply an hourly employee with no special contract, besides the standard employee agreement for hourly workers. But since I'd started doing management-level work, everyone had assumed that I was made to sign the management contract, which had a clause in it that required management to work past their notice if the company requested it for handover training, or anything the person was working on that couldn't be finished by anyone else. So within a week, they were frantically trying to get me to help them, and I'd already started working with my new company half a week early, so I was ignoring their calls, texts, and emails because I was diving headfirst into my new role. Well, even after the threats, I thought they would have figured out that I didn't sign that contract. About another week later, I was served papers at my new office. And it shocked me, honestly. I read over the paperwork, and they were suing me for breach of contract. And it listed a law firm on it, obviously. So I decided to call them up and ask them if they had a signed contract, and I was laughed off the phone by the law office clerk. I realized I shouldn't have called them and should have gotten my own lawyer. Just 3 days later, I received a certified letter from the law firm with an official apology for being served and had official documentation showing they dropped the lawsuit. And apparently they dropped that company as a client for unethical practices. I never got another text, call, or email from anyone at that company or law firm. It felt nice that I shut down a lawsuit with a single question. Is that even an ethical clause? Like, they can't force you to keep working there, right? I mean, what if they hire a bunch of people who are totally inept? If you can't train them properly, does that mean you just have to keep working there until they can have somebody who figures it out? Like, would this clause really hold up in court anyways? I think there's a reason why that law office dropped them for unethical practices. Our next story is, yes, I'll get you a coffee, but your laptop order goes back to the bottom of the pile. In the early 90s, I worked for an international airline company in the IT department as desktop support. I was the first woman in IT for that company, and most companies in my country back then. The company was located at an international airport, and the company was housed in many buildings and airplane hangars spread across and around the airport. The buildings I serviced were mainly the hangars meant for airplane maintenance. Every 6 weeks, we would order all the IT equipment that was requested, stuff like specialized printers, computers, terminals, etc. My job was to take the equipment, set it up, and have the person responsible for said equipment to sign off on it. If it wasn't signed off for whatever reason, the equipment came back with me, would be returned to the vendor, and had to be reordered by the department. Being a woman in her early 20s and a male-oriented profession and dealing mostly with airplane maintenance men, I had to deal with a lot of crap and misogyny. From snickering men having set up their computers I was supposed to service with hardcore adult entertainment screensavers, to men refusing to let me touch their computers and demanding I get a male colleague to do it. Most of the time, I just pretended not to have seen or heard what was going on, finish setting up their hardware, have it signed off, and leave. Until that one day, I just had enough of their bull. That day, I had a trolley with me stacked with a bunch of printers and one laptop. Back then, only management got a laptop, and if one was delivered, it was kind of a big deal. Remember, I'm talking about the Windows 3.11 era. I walked into the airplane hangar with my stacked cart, setting up printers throughout while a team of airplane maintenance dudes were servicing a cargo plane. The minute I walked in, there was catcalling, whistling, and, "Hey baby, where you going with all that heavy equipment?" As usual, I ignored them and just plowed on so I could get the freak out of there. When I was done with the printers, I had to go find this manager who had ordered the laptop and set it up for him. Airplane hangars are weird places. It seemed to be one giant space with some glass offices just off the side, but it does have all these nooks and crannies that seem to be nothing, but are actually small offices or storage spaces. It's hard to find the right place to be sometimes. So I walk up to a bunch of maintenance guys that are just about to take a break and ask them where I can find Mr. Manager Dude, when one of them goes, "Hey baby, you done with all that heavy stuff? I'd like a black coffee with sugar and my colleague here wants an espresso." To the 5 or 6 other guys, this was hilarious and they started shooting off how they wanted their coffees. One of them actually brought out a tray and handed it to me, telling me to be quick about it. I'd about had enough, and a thundercloud must have been forming around my head because Mr. Manager Guy, I assumed because he was wearing a suit, who just walked around the corner, cackles and goes, "Aw, what's up, sweetie? Got your period?" Of course, this was heartily laughed at by all the other guys. I asked Mr. Manager Guy if he wanted coffee too, and which kind. I can't remember what kind it was, but I took my cart with a laptop on it, drive it to the coffee machine, made all the coffees, drive it back over, and handed everyone their coffee order. When I handed Mr. Manager Guy his coffee, he said, "Okay, honey, let's go. I'll show you to my office so you can set up my new laptop." I looked him in the eye, smiled, and told him, "I can't, as I'm late for my next appointment with all the coffee orders. I really have to run. Unfortunately, your laptop will have to be returned, and you'll have to reorder one. So I'll see you in 6 weeks. Bye." Of course, he tried to tell me he really needed that laptop now and the coffee thing was all in good fun and I shouldn't be so sensitive, blah blah blah. When I just kept on walking with my cart, it turned ugly pretty soon. I was a witch and he was going to have me fired. Did I have any idea who he was, etc.? I just silently chucked everything in the car and drive off with him screaming after me. He did try to get me fired, but my manager had my back and made sure his reorder was delayed a few times to teach him a lesson. When I finally delivered his laptop 4 months later, he was very respectful though. Unfortunately, it wasn't the last time I had to deal with this kind of crap. So often, people always say that the 90s were the golden ages, and in a lot of ways I definitely agree. The world was definitely a very different and, dare I say, brighter place back then. But you go back to the early 90s and there's a lot more of this kind of stuff going on. One of the brighter things that's going on, at least in today's day and age, is it at least seems to be a little bit more frowned upon and actually handled. I mean, it's still out there, but if you go back to the 80s and 90s, it seemed like it was just part of life you had to accept in some places. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely awesome malicious compliance story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.